Hi everybody, today I'm working on a 2009 Mini Cooper Clubman. This car needs a new alternator, and the reason I know it needs an alternator is because the voltage does not increase even when the car is running. So right now I've got my charger connected, but it's not charging. I'm just reading the voltage, and when the car is turned off it's showing 11.9 volts, which is about normal. And with the car running, I've got a check battery light on the instrument cluster, and with the car running it's still reading below 12 volts. It should be reading about 14 volts with the engine running, so we know the alternator is no good. And we're doing the work on a non-turbo model, but the procedure is basically the same. The only difference is there's going to be an extra air charge tube across the top here, so you'll just need to disconnect the inlet tube at the top here, and you may need to disconnect from the turbo as well. I'll put a link in the description for the various tools I'm going to be using. So first we'll remove these plastic connectors. There's a total of 5. We're just using a body panel tool to pop them out. Next we remove the headlights. This bolt here can corrode from moisture continually dripping onto it. So it's a good idea to spray a bit of penetrating oil in here the night before you do the job. If you can't get the bolt out, you may have to drill it out. Squeeze to disconnect. There's two 10mm bolts here and here. And on the turbo cars there'll be another 10mm bolt right about here holding the intake tube. Next there's 4 13mm bolts. And then a total of 4 torx 30 bolts for the bonnet latch. Now we'll use the body panel tool again to pop this clip open. Remove the cable for the hood latch, release. Now we have to pop this little grommet out of the way, and then lift up and out. You could also just bungee cord it up out of the way if you don't want to take apart the rest of the little cable release here. Next we'll remove the grill, the upper grill. There's a couple of clips inside here. You kind of pinch and pull. These are the clips. You pinch them to release. Next we have to pull back the wheel arch here. We don't have to take it off completely. We just have to pinch and pull the inside part because there's a couple of bolts hidden under here. Inside here there's 2 clips that you need to remove. One right here and another up higher right here. On this car it's missing on the upper one. And it's a similar clip to the front of the car where there's a pin going right down the middle. You need to pinch and pull out. These can be kind of hard to get out, so you may want to purchase some replacement clips. This tool is really nice for getting those side clips out. They're usually really stiff. And we repeat on the other side. You know, this guy's really smart. He put a zip tie through the hole instead of a body clip. I guess that'll work too. Somebody's been in here before, obviously, with these missing clips. So now we're going to separate the wheel arch from the bumper, and you do that just by kind of hitting it with the palm of your hand while pushing on the bumper with your other hand. So now it's loose. Then I'm going to use a set of bent nose, needle nose pliers, and then go up kind of underneath the wheel liner here. There's a couple of gray clips here, and I'm going to pinch them while I pull out. So there's a whole row of them. I'm just going to do the first 2. Then I'm going to shove something in here to keep it out of the way and to prevent the gray clips from reconnecting themselves when I'm not ready for it. Next we're going to remove a total of 6 Torx T25 fasteners. The ones on the bottom are in the outside corners here. Finally, underneath there should be 3 more body clips here, here, and here, but on this car they're missing. Now the bumper is completely loose and we can pull it forward. So we just disconnect the electrical connectors. There should be 2 lighting connectors on each side, or only 1 on each side if you don't have fogs, and then 1 connector for the ambient air sensor. And remember to plug this one back in or you're going to get a check engine light. Now we can put the bumper out of the way. Okay, back underneath again, we're going to remove this little skid plate for the keep stuff from going into the radiator. And then there's 4 subframe bolts, 2 on each side, 16 millimeter. And then on the front there's 3 13 millimeter bolts, 2 on the bottom here, 1 on top. And last, there's 2 10 mil bolts on each side holding the modular front end onto the fenders. So now we're going to hammer this forward, and we're only going to put it far enough forward that it's still hanging onto the subframe underneath here. Okay, that's about right. Okay, so the front end's forward, but it's still hanging onto the subframe. Alright, so now we can see the alternator. It's actually underneath this tensioner bracket. So we're going to go ahead and take the tension off the belt, remove the belt, and get going with it. So I'm going to disconnect this one while I'm here. This is the charge tube for the coolant, for the AC. And it's just kind of in the way. I'm going to fold it out of the way. This is a T25 Torx as well. If you're working on a turbo car, you're going to have the charge tube right here. So there's another bolt about partway down, another Torx T25 right here. So you can loosen the hose clamp down here and then get the charge tube out of the way. So I have a special tool here to take tension off the belt. You can probably just use a crescent wrench as well. And then push the pin in, and that locks the tensioner in the open position. Next we'll take the tensioner off, and it's held on by 2 E10 reverse Torx bolts here and here. I'll pull the bolts out. And take it out of there. Next we'll disconnect the battery. Okay, then we can flick the belt off of the alternator. Right here are the electrical connectors. It's a 13 for the top one, and then there's a signal connector on the bottom. It's a pull clip, so you have to pull upward to get the clip to come loose. Next we'll disconnect the 13 mil bolt, and if you forgot to disconnect the battery, you'll find out pretty quick here. I'll use a magnet tool to get that bolt out of there. Get the wiring out of the way. Here's the new alternator. The bottom bolt is right here, so we'll take that off next. That bolt is an E10 bolt as well. This one's a little hard to get a straight shot because the AC line is in the way. It can't be removed without discharging the system, unfortunately. So I'm going to come up with a trick to get that bolt, because the E10 socket is just too long to get in there. So a good trick is you can actually use a 12.8 millimeter socket if you don't have reverse Torx. It fits over perfectly. It's a little tight, but it works just as good as an E10. Just be sure to hold it on so it doesn't slip off and strip it. And we'll back it out the rest of the way by hand. We'll take that bolt out. Now we'll just maneuver it out of here. I'm going to disconnect this Vanoss solenoid wire to give us a little more room. And pull it up and out. It just barely clears. Okay, we can install the new one now. Rotate it in place. And then slide this bottom bolt in before I put it all the way in place. And there's a dowel or a bushing here, and I'm just going to kind of tap it to get it to go into its spot. This one's a little bit tight. I'll hand thread the bottom bolt most of the way. And I'll restore the wiring now before I put the tensioner in, so I have a little more room. Get them all the entire way. We're going to replace the belt as well since we're here. And on these cars, it's a 6PK 903 or a 060355 belt. And here's the belt path under here. It wraps around the alternator, the AC pump, and the crankshaft pulley. It does not go around the water pump. This is kind of a roller mechanism instead. And it's got a pull cord on it. We just kind of pull that cord, and it causes it to disengage. There's a little clip here. We clip it over, and then I can slide the belt off. We'll put the new belt on. I'll put it over the alternator pulley first. Then I'll put it over the crankshaft pulley. Slide it in between the roller and the pulley. And then last I'm going to pull it over the AC pump. Then we can take tension off the belt. Then we can finish putting it back together. When doing this, make sure that the modular front end ears are not hitting the fender. Then we can put the bumper back on, reconnect the ambient sensor. Don't forget this or you'll get a check engine light. Next we'll snap the wheel arch back in place. And then we'll put the wheel arch body clips back in. We'll put the upper crash member back in place. And when putting back together, we're going to look at like the dirt pattern here. There's like a circle where the bolt used to be. We're going to try to line up all of those as close as we can. See, there's a lot of range of motion here. I'm trying to make it line up. And that's all there is to it. Oh, look, got to reconnect the battery. So let's hook it up again and see how we did. So we're at 11.8 volts with the car turned off. And the voltage is rising now with the car turned on. We're at 14.5, and that's pretty much exactly where it should be. Somewhere between 14 and 14.7 roughly. So that's all there is to it. I'll put a link in the description for all the parts and tools I use for this job. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.